Hello friends, Heidi here from Rain Country. God is good all the time. And it's time for another this and that video. So let's get started on all the things I have going on today. Well, one of the things I need to do is I'm going to be boiling up some of my chicken eggs so that I can ferment them. Since I emptied one of I have two of these Speedo jars thanks to Elizabeth, and I use them both for my fermented eggs. I have a full one in the fridge right now, and I'm going to be starting another batch today. And I think I'm going to go ahead and do the rosemary and garlic and red pepper. That so far is my favorite. So I'm going to be making that one again. And if you haven't seen my video on how I ferment eggs, you can go ahead and check that video out right up here. It's just a real basic, no frills, just a little bit of salt and the fermentation starter. And today I'll be using the goji berry fermentation starter. Now, one thing I wanted to say about the boiling of eggs. I've put the question out there a while back. I think it was on Facebook in the group page. And if you're not in our group, go find us at Rain Country Rebels on Facebook. Anyway, I put the question out there on what is the best way to boil eggs, fresh eggs, from your own chickens, to make an easy peel egg. Well, I've tried it all. I've even tried steaming. I've done the baking soda in the water. I've done salt in the water. You name it. The ice water after you're done. And sometimes those things sort of work, but they're not as dependable as the one way I have found that seems to work the best for me personally. I don't know. Maybe it depends on your chickens, but I find it best to use eggs that are at least 2 to 3 weeks old. Now, I refrigerate them and let them age in the refrigerator, wash them up, put them in the fridge, and then I cycle through my eggs, and I know which ones are the oldest ones, and those are the ones I boil, and it just seems like it never fails that those work the best. I even did a batch where I had mostly the 2 to 3 week old eggs, and then 2 that were fresh from the chickens, did everything the same, the way I boiled them, put them in the same pot. And not that I could tell exactly which eggs, I should have marked them, but which eggs were the ones that were the fresh ones. But I was pretty sure I knew because there was 2 eggs that were incredibly difficult to peel. And everything else, the peels just slipped right off. I'm not going to say that there isn't the occasional time there's one that just sort of doesn't peel as good as the others, but pretty much 95% of the time, my eggs peel really well doing that. At first, I was aging them back in the pantry, and that's not an issue. I'm pretty good at cycling through, but I find it works just as good letting them sit in the refrigerator, so that way you don't have to worry about forgetting them and them spoiling. And so that works really good for me, so you may want to give it a try. And that's how I do it now. Okay, so moving on to the next thing, I just emptied out my soaked wheat berry jar, soaked and dried wheat berries, because I was grinding up a bunch of flour. I'm hoping to get a loaf of bread made today. I don't know if I'm going to have time, but at least within the next couple of days. So I'm grinding up a bunch of flour on the Country Living grain mill. The Country Living grain mill is one of those items that I most recommend, even though it's a big expense. I think it's one of those things that a person should save up for, because if you're into grinding your own flour, you've got options with that. It's sturdy, it's well made here in the US, and here in Washington even. You can grind by hand, which I did for years, until last year Mr. Rain rebuilt an old motor and hooked it up to it, and I use that now because of time. I love grinding by hand, but my time has become more and more precious every day, so that has saved me tons of time. And if you want to see how he did that, I'll go ahead and link to that video right up here with the grain mill and the motor. But anyway, but you can run it. We can run that off of solar power or even off of our public power. But the thing is we have a way to grind flour whether we have power or not. Even if we don't have solar power, I can still grind by hand. That's why it's a great thing. So anyway, I need to get to soaking some more wheat berries, and I do have a couple of videos out on that. The way I dry them is different in the summer than in the winter. It's summertime now, so I'll be drying them on the electric dehydrator hooked up to our solar power. And I can link to that video right up here if you'd like to see it. But I'll show you really quick. You don't really have to go to that video. All I do is add some of my homemade vinegar. And yes, this is one of the other things I use my homemade vinegar for. Right into my jar of my mixed wheat. I've got 2 different types of wheat berries in here. They're all organic. One I get from Amazon. It's the Great River Organics, I believe it's called, and it's the soft white wheat berry. And the other I get from Honeyville, and it's the organic hard white wheat berry. But anyway, I pour, you know, a couple tablespoons of vinegar into that. And then I top it off with my filtered rainwater. And if you're interested in the stainless steel canning funnel, which I highly recommend, I will go ahead and link to this one below. I couldn't find one in our local store, which is, you know, typical for a lot of things like that. So I was able to find one on Amazon, and I was thrilled. Then I just take a chopstick and stir it all in there so the vinegar and water gets down to all the wheat berries that are in there. And then, because I always seem to run out of the white lids, I save these peanut butter jar lids, and they fit on here pretty good. They don't fit as nicely on some jars as on others, like these ones. It's fitting great. But yeah, it just depends on the jar. But this is regular mouth jar, so you can save some of these peanut butter jar lids. And at least they have color, a little more interesting looking than the plain white ball ones. But those ones are more, those will fit all regular mouth jars. So then what I do is I just set that aside for 24 hours, and tomorrow I will drain and rinse it well, and then I'll put it on my dehydrator using the fruit roll-up trays in the dehydrator trays. So the berries don't fall through there, and that works really good, dries up really well. I set the heat on, I think it's 125 is what I set the heat on for the wheat berries. And then I also have some of my own homegrown, these are the runner beans. They make a great chili, and I'm going to also soak these with a little bit of vinegar. That just breaks down that phytic acid and stuff to make it more digestible. So the same thing for the wheat berries. That's why it's a good idea to soak them. And I haven't got into sprouting my wheat berries for my breads, and maybe I will someday. Right now it's just a matter of just another thing and extra time that I just really don't have. So same thing applies here. Whoops, let me stir that up. I'm going to let these soak for at least 24 hours, and then I will rinse them out, and then I will go right to cooking them up to make chili. Set those back here with the wheat berries. So next I'm going to talk about some of the teas I've been making from my Camellia japonica. I think that's how you say it. I think I was saying it all wrong in that previous video. But this here is some white tea I recently made. Now I have yet to try it. I am hoping to do that real soon, and I'm hoping to make more of this real soon. And then here is the black tea. And so if you didn't see my video on how to make black tea from the Camellia japonica, I'll go ahead and link to that video right up here. And yes, I did make some sun tea using that black tea that I made. And look at that color. Isn't that beautiful? It is pretty strong. It actually tastes stronger than it looks. So Mr. Rain will actually be able to have some iced tea, and this is a sweet tea. He does like the sweet tea, when he gets home today. Okay, next I'll be talking a little bit about catnip. I'm going to be dehydrating some catnip. I'm not done getting it ready to go in the dehydrator, and I wanted to show you I am dehydrating the flowers as well, just to show you that yes, you can dehydrate and use the flowers as well. Typically I don't do that for a couple of reasons, and one is to leave the flowers for the sake of collecting seed, because I actually didn't put any catnip seeds up on my store last year because I really didn't save very much. I just gave them to a couple of friends. But I'm hoping this year to get enough saved up to put up on my store. But also another real big reason is I like to leave lots of flowers on there for the sake of the bees. The bees just love the catnip flowers. What you'll find is that bees are mostly attracted to purple flowers anyway. So anything that you have that has purple flowers or blue, like the borage is usually blue and purple. The bees are going to be most attracted to those ones. So leaving some flowers is a really good idea. And plus they're just beautiful when you have the purple with the lavender and the catnip and the borage, and it all just looks so lovely. And now I wanted to show you real quick, typically what I do is I just strip most of the leaves off the stem so it takes up a lot less room in the dehydrator. And if the stems are really tender and you can't just strip the leaves off without breaking it, then just leave it. Don't worry about it. Mostly it's just I'm trying to get as much of the really thick ones out as possible because it will speed up drying time. Because typically what I end up having to do is the leaves will be and the flowers will be all dried, but then I'll find that I still have some stems, like this one here won't dry all the way through. And then I just end up having to pull the leaves off anyway. Okay, and I'll finish stripping those and getting that on the dehydrator later so you don't have to see all of that. If you're interested in some of the health benefits and uses of catnip, I'll go ahead and link to that old video I did, I think last year, right up here. And then also the bug spray, which is what I want to talk about next, that I made. And I have a video on this as well, and you can find that video right up here. I think that's at least video number 4 or 5. So if I say any more and I run out of cards up here, then go ahead and look towards the end screen and see if I posted it there. But anyway, the catnip is one of the things I'm using in the bug spray, and I have a testimonial I wanted to share since I made that video, and that is I went out on my cayenne pepper plant and found it loaded with aphids, which is weird. It's the only plant in the greenhouse that had aphids on it, but loaded, and it shocked me. It's almost like overnight there was aphids all over it. So, and I hadn't been spraying it down because there was nothing else eating on it before that. And so I took my spray, I didn't add anything to it, I didn't add neem oil to it or anything like that, just my herbal spray, all herbs from my own garden, and sprayed it down real heavily. And then the next morning I went out and sprayed it again, but by then most of the aphids were gone. And now, but I keep spraying it down anyway, but the aphids are all gone, and I was thrilled. This worked so well on that. And so again, I recommend this. It's working really good for me. But again, like I said in that video, just to add a little more power to it, if you're having a real bad insect problem, I say add a little bit of some organic soap, like the Dr. Bronner's or the Vita Castile soap, and some neem oil. Make sure you get the good organic neem oil, and I will link to both of those below, and so you can find that, and then you can make your tea with whatever herbs you have in your garden that you know that are good at repelling bugs. So what's in this is the feverfew, catnip, mints, garlic greens, and oregano. A real hot oregano, the hottest oregano that you can grow. And even if you only have one or a couple of those, then just use a whole bunch of that alone and try it by itself and see if it works. Make your tea out of it and see how it works as a spray. If it's just not powerful enough, then I recommend adding that neem and or the soap to it, because that would do the trick. One more thing is I actually did mention vinegar again in this video, didn't I? And I almost always mention water kefir. And so my latest batch is rose petal and rhubarb, and I just took a taste of it. I tried it yesterday, and it is really good. So I'll definitely be making another batch, but I'm going to let this ferment a little bit longer. I think I must have started it later in the day. I want it to get good and fizzy and a little bit more infused. I'm actually surprised the water doesn't have more color in it because of the rose petals, but I think if I let it sit for one more day, because you can let it ferment for a couple days if you want. It just depends. Just keep in mind, the longer you let your water kefir ferment, the less sugar content or sweetness it's going to have to it. And that may be what you want to do anyway. I did actually have one more thing I want to talk about, and that is cinnamon sugar. We don't go through a lot of this, but every so often if I have some leftover white rice, Mr. Rain likes to use cinnamon sugar on his white rice. And it's also good for sprinkling on toast every now and then. And so I have my own recipe. It's super easy. I'm sure most people know how to make cinnamon sugar, but just in case you don't, And if I have room for the iCard up here, I'll go ahead and link to that old video up here or at the end of this video. Okay, well, I think that's it for my this and that for today. If you have any questions about any of the stuff I have going on here, then just feel free to ask below. Keep in mind, I'm having a more difficult time keeping up on all the comments. I'm really trying, but I'm so busy with the garden, with skirt making, and all these little projects that, you know, I do my best to at least get in there and answer questions. I may not be able to reply to every single comment I see, but I do read them. I do read them all, just so you know that I do read them all. I do see them, and thank you for all the great comments and interactions, especially on the prepping video. A lot of really good comments on there. Okay, well, I hope you enjoyed this video and that you learned something new. Thanks for watching. Take care and God bless.